We move to our next presenter, Mr. Jain, on the
Hello.
topic Morbidity, Impact of COVID-19 Pandemic on Clinical and Non-Clinical Staff Working in United Nations in Burnaby.
My name is Claude Musengimana. I'm a student in the Texila American University. I'm going to present you on the impact of COVID pandemic in the United Nations staff. Those means the clinical and non-clinical staff. What we're going to have a look on the summary on the problem, and then we look on the results, and then we will have a look on the discussion. So this study focused on the COVID morbidity impact on clinical and non-clinical employee of the United Nations in Burundi. So the main objective was to explore the morbidity impact of COVID pandemic on clinical and non-clinical staff working in the United Nations in Burundi from 1st March to 2020 to 31st January 2022. As the problem, I think you know that the coronavirus is a very serious pandemic disease, which is threatened many people's life around the world. People currently 5,783,776 people out of 400 million. So those people were recurrent, and those 404 millions, they were confirmed cases. Going to Burundi, there were 19,000 cases of COVID, and the only 19,287 vaccine doses have been administered, and the 14 deaths as of 26th October 2021. So even if staff are involved in the treatment of patients serving in different sectors, staff are always affected because, United Nations staff, they are involved in different activities, and they are exposed at different levels. So therefore, we explored the morbidity impact of COVID pandemic on clinical and non-clinical staff working in the UN in Burundi. And the result of this study will help to form the decision makers about staffing in response to COVID. This was a cross-sectional study design. We administered the 1,400 questionnaire to 1,400 participants. And we used the analysis, statistical tests, and then we found these results. So on our findings, our study showed that 188 means 13.4 of our participants were female, and 16% of male were COVID positive. Looking on different age structure with COVID-19, 2.1 were between 21 to 30 years, 7.8% were between 31 to 40 years, 9.3% were between 41 and 50 years, and 10.2%, they are above 50 years. We were not limited there only. However, on the gender and age structure relationship, contracting COVID was not statistically significant. Going back to clinical staff with COVID, we found that 2.4 means 50% of clinical employees were COVID positive, and other remaining were COVID negative. Going to non-clinical staff, we realized that 27%, that means 379 out of 1,334 participants, they were positive. So only 28% were positive, and using statistical tests, we found that the relationship was highly significant at 0.001. So going on, those are few of reference that we used, and moving on the conclusion, we found that the positivity rate is higher for clinical staff compared to non-clinical staff working in the United Nations in Burundi. And the evaluation of COVID morbidity impact was crucial to emphasize on the invested efforts. So more efforts were made for the United Nations employees, for non-clinical employees, and we recommended a higher monitored policy for clinical employees to minimize their infection rates. So it is necessary to think about our clinical staff and work on them so that we can protect them. So we are recommending further studies to explore more and improve on how we can protect our clinical employees. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Jain. That was an awesome presentation. And now I request the participants to raise any queries if needed, like to post it in the QA session or in the chat box. We have one question, Mr. Jain. So were any staff coming down with LON, that is lone COVID? If so, how shall you be able to diagnose and manage it?
Any staff coming down with iron? What does it mean, iron COVID?
I guess like it's from Beatrice. Beatrice, can you please retype the question? What is it meant with iron? ION?
I don't know, ION COVID.
Okay.
I don't understand. Yeah, maybe he may clarify. So Beatrice is saying ION COVID.
Yes, yes, Mr. Jain.
So she means a long COVID. Ah, okay. So we have some patients with such a problem, and there are some channels of treatment, and some of them, those who are in non-clinical condition, they were treated at home and isolated at home. But those one who were in a critical condition, they were treated in Burundi, and then there are channels of transfer of evacuations for those who are in clinical condition.
There's one question. So what is the percentage of COVID-29 in Burundi?
Now, based on data we have now in Burundi, I don't have it right now here, but I can share with her a bit, right? Because now I don't have it right now, the percentage of COVID if it is in the UN staff or the country.
Thank you so much. We have one more question. What could have contributed to the high positivity rate for the clinical staff? Any assumption?
If you had a look on the numbers of cases we have in Burundi, there are some assumptions, but after looking, analyzing, we realized that there are some unknown reason. For example, for those staff who are working in the treatment centers, and there is a mixing of treatment centers and those staff who were in the non-treatment centers. So for those who work in non-treatment centers, we realized that they were in a very high condition, but we did not move far to look, but because we were fixing on to explore how we were looking only on the differences between the clinical and the non-clinical, so that we can go ahead and explore more due to the limitation of data on the government side. So we went ahead and exploring the UN stuff so that we can go far to explore more.
Thank you so much. We have one more question. How did organization manage the impact of the gaps observed from the FX staff during this period?
So already there are some protocols developed, and now there are some measures. We separated the departments. For those who are working in treatment centers, they are no longer using the same way they used to do, and there are some policies developed, and now they are implementing it so that the clinical staff may be well protected. Also, for those who are COVID positive, they are isolated, treated, and they have 2 consecutive tests to be passed before they must have 2 consecutive negative tests before coming back to work.
Thank you so much. We have one more question. What was the difference in positivity rate between the study camp and general population on average?
We focused on only the clinical on the United Nations staff, because they were willing to accept and participate in the study. So we did not move far for the general population, but after the analysis, we realized that in general population, but it is looking on daily statistic, the data are increasing, but there is no information that is focusing on differentiation on clinical and non-clinical staff.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jain. That was an awesome presentation. I request you to put down your email ID on the chat box so that the participants, if they have any queries, they can raise it to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jain.